Hello everyone. Hopefully this connection's going to be okay. I'm in a different location again. This is just how it all goes. It seems these days. There's always change. When I'm trying to do things, I'm trying to get things organised consistently. And these are the stresses and the trials of what has been going on this year. Always been a consistent change, there's always been difficulty, trying to kind of like be consistent, which obviously is not great for business, not great for people showing up, but that's just the way it's gone. That's just the way it is right now. So I hope everyone's doing okay. I can only see one person at the moment. And I think it's very interesting to see where we are in this year. Like I've been talking about it a lot, and sometimes I repeat myself, with where we're at and how things are going. But that's because we're in a new theme now. Mercury has come into Cancer now. Obviously, we're in Cancer season. We're at the halfway stage of the year. And it's always interesting to reflect on, let's say the solstice points when we're moving forward from that. And we can see how much we've travelled, how much we've come. And there's so much change, that's occurred. And, there are planets retrograde right now, with Pluto there, Saturn as well. And we will have Neptune going retrograde. That's the big theme of the week this week. We will be having that happening. So really what it is that we're reflecting right now. We're really reflecting on how far we've come, all the changes, again, integrating what we need to integrate to make things successful now. So there is a review period at the moment, and obviously all of this sort of conversation that I'll be doing now for the next 3 months is very much to do with this Venus retrograde. So, like I say, we've come through big themes of the year. There's bigger cycles. I've talked about this many times now. But still, we're coming into this refresh or kind of, it's very much like chickens coming home to roost a little bit right now. Like there's no escaping the inevitable sometimes, and that's why Venus retrograde often does have a certain connection to relationships, like relationship dynamic. Obviously Venus being in Leo now, it's even more intense in a way. And to get wisdom of this is to look back at July to September 2015. You can go further back, I think it's 2007. And then you can go even further back to 2001. So you could have a look at all these various times, because the symmetry of Venus and where she was in Leo, and it's symmetrical. It's always consistent. It's always at the same time periods. Now, obviously, the transits that are going on at that time is what's different. Even though Venus is in Leo at certain degrees, roughly every is it 8 years, 7 years, 2008. Yeah, about 8 years, every 8 years. That can give us that kind of understanding of what we were doing then and how we can make sense of it now, even though some themes might be different. But still, when we're looking back at what was happening back then to what's happening now, you can see these spiral effects, you can see similarities. And again, relationships is a big part of it, often, let's say in cookbook astrology, they often say that, when you get to Venus retrograde, that's when you might get married. It can go the other way as well. Relationships can break up at times like this. So it's a very interesting period of time. And I think when we're looking at it as a collective, because obviously when we're looking collectively here, when everyone's going through a Venus retrograde, because it's different. It depends on what house it's in. It depends, again, those are the themes that go in your progress chart, for example, that might be having an effect here. All of those things make the nuance, makes it different for you. But still, collectively speaking, this Leo energy now with Venus retrograde, and we're in the shadow period as it stands, is going to really start bringing up certain things like enough is enough, chickens coming home to roost, especially when we're looking at, the Capricorn full moon next week, because we will be in July. This is crazy to think how fast time is going. But yeah, the big one really is we've just come out of the solstice. We've also come out of some hard aspects, with Mars squaring Uranus, for example, and all of this stuff that's affecting Taurus. So when we're looking at Taurus, again, Jupiter's there now. And, we're thinking about this square aspects, with Mars, with Venus, all hitting, Venus should really take over Mars, but it doesn't, it's going retrograde, so it's slowing down. So we're getting this real intensity of the social planets, again, social could be relationship stuff, it could be community stuff of Mars and Venus, in Leo, so a lot of heart, a lot of fire, a lot of soul. Again, disrupting or causing conflict potentially, with this emergence of Uranus in Taurus, this movement forward of the inevitable change. I've mentioned this already, with AI and stuff, who isn't using ChatGPT now, for example, and, this phenomenon, it's similar to what happened, say, with the internet, when everyone started using Google, it's a similar thing, isn't it? These are all developments, suddenly your productivity can increase exponentially, really, and the amount of opportunity now that exists in this next 6-month period, using AI or various, new forms of technology can make a huge difference. But because of this, this Venus retrograde, it's very much a case of what's in and what's out, and that's really, chickens coming home to roost now. We've had so much instability, so much keeping it together, so much new experience. All of that is very destabilizing. It certainly created a lot of difficulty for in my personal case of getting my business up and running in an orderly fashion and doing what I was hoping to do, months ago. But now I've got to look at my environment, see where I am and do I like it, and that's basically kind of what everybody is going through to a certain extent. Everybody went through it in COVID as well. Everybody went through their forced, environment, forced environment. The Capricorn energy, that happened then, with the South Node there, forced everybody to look at their environment. But it was a bit harsher, it was a bit to be fair, at first everybody was actually quite good about it seemed, back in 2020, when the crazy transits happened, Pluto, Saturn, Jupiter, Pluto, and then at the end of the year, Saturn and Jupiter. All of that year was one of the most crazy astrological years, and we're still coming through it. We still got lots to play out, it's 2032, when you look at 2012 and all these various transits. We're really in it now. So this Venus retrograde, what it's going to do is it's going to really reveal, the people, especially because the South Node is about to shift. So, for example, when we had that Capricorn energy in 2020, so we've got the Capricorn full moon coming next week, it really highlights, your environment to a certain extent because it's cardinal Earth. Now, obviously, it's a fleeting thing. It's not something that's it's not like a shift of the nodes. But there is a shift of the nodes next month with Libra. So now, the extreme aspect, when you look at the South Node at, 1 degree here, of Scorpio right now, we're really processing the end of this 18-month transit. Obviously, the nodes will shift. Let me just see when that happens. The nodes are going to be shifting on the 17th. So we've only got about 3 weeks left. And I bring up 2020 because it was similar. It was when lockdown and things like that happened, depends where you were, but for me, it was everyone just sort of got on with it, really. But when those nodes shifted in March, I think it was, or something like that, May, into Gemini and Sagittarius, everything started shifting. Suddenly you start getting all this revolt, in places in America and various other places. There was loads of revolt that started happening. We started getting this fanaticism, so the Sagittarius stuff started to come up. So it really shifted palpably, when the nodes shifted at that particular time. So we've got that coming again, next month now, during this Venus retrograde, and also, during the end of the South Node in Scorpio, with this full moon in Capricorn as well. It's we're really getting this feeling of chickens coming home to roost. Is our environment right for us? And most importantly, are the people right for us? there's been a huge amount of discernment. There's been a huge amount of necessary conflict that's occurred over the last 3 years. And now with the South Node shifting next month, it's going to get even more important about the people that you're with, the place where you are. And we don't know how it's going to go down, but like I said, when it shifted, when the node shifted in 2020, it was really interesting to see how things shifted into a more fanatical kind of energy. And again, it's, when we're looking at the nodes, Gemini, Sagittarius in 2020, 21. Now we're here in 2023, 2024, Libra and Aries. So it's, again, fire and air. So from water and earth shifting to fire and air. So we're going to feel it. We're going to feel like quite a dramatic shift. And because Venus is also in Leo, there's more fire energy now, potentially coming. And how that's going to look like really depends on your environment and, the people that you're with. If everyone's on the same page and everyone's on the same path or whatever, then it's not going to be such a big deal. But if there are differences of opinions or the environment isn't suitable, for whatever you're trying to achieve, then these are the problems that might occur over these next 3 months, which might mean certain changes, So, for example, again with Venus retrograde, often we get to stages with it where it's like enough's enough. It's time to quit bad habits, or it's time to, start again. Fresh starts. That's what I'm saying. Usually with relationships, it can go one or two ways. It can go like marriage, for example, like people get engaged and, get married, or it can go the other way. They can break up. So it is going to highlight a lot of things over these next 3 months. But also potentially could harmonize, integrate, create more, more potential, for groups, for people. The theme is definitely going to be a lot to do with people, though, no doubt. And, with the North Node coming into Aries, we had that Jupiter, we had that there. We had Jupiter expanding all of that. Obviously, Chiron is still in Aries. So we've got to overcome stuff, and we've also got to initiate stuff, and we've got to kind of grow up in a way as well, and face the reality of this new Earth, this new emergence. Remember, I know I'm just talking a little bit far ahead here, because obviously the node shifted on the 17th. But, when we get to that point, that 0 degrees, that 29 degrees area is really setting the tone, for when Neptune and Saturn go there. Obviously, Neptune and Saturn are still in Pisces right now. And Mercury's having an effect on that at the moment, being in Cancer, in a trine aspect. So there's some positives and negatives, but really I think, just to sum it all up, we're coming out of a kind of, you could say, a quite trippy, a kind of quite unstable period of time, and emerging now into a much more real time, in the sense that enough's enough. We're not going to be in this survive or thrive theme anymore when the nodes shift. It's going to be much more instant, if things happen in the world, for example, and it's still very weird what's happening. I mean, obviously, since we last spoke, you're seeing things like, for example, in Ukraine, where we have, in the mentorship, we did discuss Putin's chart, and he is prone to mutiny. It's definitely the case when you look at his chart. So it was fascinating to think that happened, even though, was it just more of a propaganda thing? Was it more of a, personal thing? It seems to have blown over quite quickly. But still, the reality is that this hasn't ended yet, and how is it going to end? It does need to end. Is there going to be some sort of divine intervention here that's going to come in and change things? It's a similar thing to what's going on in the crypto world. I mean, look what's happened in the last week. I mean, staggering, isn't it, to think that Bitcoin, after months of going down, within a couple of days, smashes into 30k. I mean, it's just staggering, to think how volatile and also how prolific it is. It just goes to show, if you can handle the volatility, and if you bought it at 16 at the start of the year when we talked about it on the financial chart that I did on accessible astrology, you'd have doubled your money basically right now. So there's always opportunities, Obviously, there's a lot of crazy stuff going on in the world that's trying to control all of this. There's an emergence of technology coming in, it's happening. There's going to be so much change over these next couple of years. So here we are. We're still in very uncertain times. I think Mercury squaring Neptune just yesterday, where it was, again, creates that instability. It creates that unusual, that unnerving kind of feeling. But it's nothing that we're not unused to. We've been going through this for a while now. It's much more to do with, like I say, chickens coming home to roost. What's in, what's out. Enough is enough. What needs to change, what needs to be permanently ended or like say, for example, like a commitment, like marriage, those sorts of things. All of this is burgeoning right now. When we're going to have some sort of stability with Pluto in Capricorn for a little bit. Like I say, retrograde, Neptune happening. That happens on the 30th. And then, like I say, that full moon in Capricorn, I think, is really, really important. I think that's the one on the 3rd, which really kind of stabilizes things a little bit, because again, Pluto is in Capricorn now. So that's it now. We're looking at 2008. We're looking at this whole period of time before we move now into the next couple of years into this new world, technology. Like I said already, who isn't using ChatGPT now, for example? These things will become so normalized. I mean, it's incredible to think what's about to happen, especially once the new digital world emerges, especially currency-wise, and how that uses AI, for example. How these things become so quick, so fast. But we're not quite there yet. So, really, what we need to do is, if we're in the Northern Hemisphere, is continue to enjoy the summer. And, Cancer is a lot to do with family, isn't it? We've got July the 4th in America happening next week. We've got public holidays. We've got, we've still got a lot of reality, here of what's about to happen from now until April next year when we're looking at Jupiter conjunct Uranus. We really have a lot of change to occur over these next 3 months. And then obviously the eclipses in October. And then once we get to the end of the year, we're really in this sort of like potential, especially when things go direct again. When Pluto goes direct, when Saturn goes direct, Neptune will be going direct too. But when at the end of the year, when everything is in full motion, it's all about that movement towards April next year when we get that Jupiter conjunct Uranus. It's going to be a big deal, in Taurus. There's huge opportunities, like for example, what will Bitcoin be like this time next year? I mean, I'm not trying to just push Bitcoin. I think there are other much better, safer things to invest in. But just think where it could be, in a year's time. Like, for example, all of the downward trend that's been occurring now for the past months, blown out in 2 days. I mean, it's staggering. It's shocking. And it's a bit like what happened with, when Google came onto the world, how it just decimated Microsoft. Like, Microsoft was the behemoth. It was the one that was like, wow, the world has changed now. When the computers really took full hold of every day, everyone's got a computer at home and everyone can use Microsoft Word and all those sorts of things, Excel, whatever. And then Google came, and then it just absolutely annihilated, the power of Bill Gates in that moment. Obviously, they've adapted and they do other things now, Microsoft. But still, we're seeing that happen more and more and more. And because of this exponential wave that we're on, what is the new currency going to be? Uranus in Taurus. I mean, we can't ignore it. How is AI going to help with that? I mean, that's another huge factor now, to consider. Obviously, Bitcoin, for example, has now developed into NFTs. How is that going to develop? How is the world going to adopt into this new currency, this new world? So it's a very fascinating time. I think really the point I'm trying to make with this particular conversation today, just come past the solstice. there are squares, happening to Uranus. Again, this Uranus in Taurus, this movement of the new world in Taurus, a fixed Earth, the change that is occurring. And these social planets, like I say, you've got Venus, you've got Mars, and how they are, the social planets, and how they are affecting that change. So it really is to do with people this summer. It really, really is. It's about how are we as sovereign individuals going to do the best that we can to be a part of our community and thrive and do what we are here to do, and it also means taking it easy as well. It's not just about going all in and hardcore sometimes. I think the people who are aware of this Uranus in Taurus, i.e. Jupiter conjunct Uranus next year, will be thinking, right, I need to get my shit together and make it happen before that date, because there's so much exponential growth. But remember, retrograde motion, there is a lot of retrograde motion right now, is about reflecting as well. It's about taking it easy and just gathering oneself. And I think that'll be a good thing to do before we have these nodal shift that's going to occur on the 17th next month. Really taking stock of what has happened over the last 18 months with this the South Node in Scorpio. All the crap that's come up, all the difficulty that we've had to face. Personally, from a personal point of view, I can't wait to come out of this grief energy, which I've been experiencing for the past 18 months. It was like even yesterday, it just sort of hit me again, like where am I? What's happened, and where, what does my life look like now? So again, that deep, dark look at things, going into the underworld, as it were, what Scorpio is all about, and just accepting, how much has occurred, but then at the same time making permanent changes now. It's like we don't get any younger, we're always getting older, so we have to adapt to our age, to our timelines. And if that means, right, I can't do that anymore, then so be it. It's time to say that's no longer part of my reality. I can't do that anymore. Likewise, if there's certain changes that need to occur in relationship, then it's time to have those conversations, those agreements, and deal with it. Because, like I say, Venus retrograde, it can create that. It can create that kind of, it's time to get married, or it's time to break up, or it's time to reevaluate, change things. So we're moving forward together. Think of it when we get to the next Venus retrograde in Gemini, in 8 years' time. Where will we be then from the conversations that we've had now? Sorry, Venus in Leo, should I say. It's actually in Leo. Where will we be in 8 years' time? This is why it's so important to be reflective of these times. So look back, to July, September of 2015, that's when it was. So July to September 2015. What were you doing then? You might find it really interesting when people start reaching out to you, people who were sort of like around your vortex at that time, how those people come up. It could be very interesting. Like, say, maybe there's things that need to be cleansed, things that need to be moved on from, that are still recurring, are still coming up to prod you in the right direction, to say, right, no, you need to go in this direction, you need to take action, you need to do this, you need to do that. So I really think, be mindful of the movement forward now. There's no getting out of it. Jupiter is in Taurus, it's staying there, it's not leaving, it stays in a sign for a year. So we had a really intense period of time over the last 2 years with Uranus in Taurus, because Saturn was squaring it, and then also the nodes were in there. So like, say, the North Node is in there at the moment. When that shifts into Aries on the 17th next month, the South Node goes into Libra, then it's much more social, it's much more to do with people. So that's why Venus retrograde is such an important thing. Venus ruling love, Venus about, let's say, justice, harmony. It's very much to do with people. Like the 7th house rules, it rules the other, and Venus rules the 7th house. So, that's going to come up, no doubt about it. Using this last bit of Scorpio energy, being aware of grief, being aware of inheritance, being aware of death, being aware of these sorts of things. So we're prepared for it. Hopefully everybody who has experienced trauma in that way, or someone that they knew experienced it, has made the effort to go see the parents, for example, has made the effort to be social, because like I said, what's going to be really, really interesting moving forward next month is that your environment will be very important to you. You know, like wherever you've chosen to locate during this next 3 months, you know, are you happy there? Are the people that are around you right now your tribe? Can you talk to them? Do you feel safe? You know, all of the South Node in Scorpio and North Node in Taurus, Survive and Thrive, was setting everyone up for that. You know, setting everyone up to be able to thrive within their community for this next nodal shift. So, you know, have you got everything, your ducks in a row? You know, have you got a plan B? You know, have you got enough money to pay the rent? You know, all of those things. And then what will happen next month when we move into this Aries North Node and South Node Libra axis? The theme will change. The new Earth will get more accelerated, and then the people, you know, how that affects them. You know, this bifurcation. You know, people who are going up, who are thriving, who are using ChatGPT. You know, people who are cut their losses and starting again. You know, there could be a bit of that too. People who are accepting that life is short, you know, and am I happy, you know, and it's time to do what is required to put oneself first and be self-loving enough to trust themselves, you know, to know what they have to do. You know, these are just the acceleration of these things now are going to really come into the fore, I think, you know, with this shift energy. So it's really, really important next week. Like I said, we get Neptune retrograde on the 30th. So again, we're going into retrograde season. All these planets are going into retrograde. You know, Jupiter will be following very shortly. That's a reflective moment. It's like, where are we at now? You know, we're not in la la land, you know, not in delusion. You know, we're actually really coming home. Coming home to roost is a term, is what I would use. And then, what does our environment look like? Are we happy? And that's what this Capricorn full moon on the 3rd will be all about. So on the 3rd, it's time to get structure. You know, it's time to dig in. You know, like get your flag and plant it in the ground and go, right, this is my land or whatever. And what am I going to do if you love that place? What does it mean to feel safe here? You know, and to protect myself. You know, I don't like to think for the idea of protection in the sense of I'm keeping people out, but no, I'm maintaining my sovereignty to thrive. You know, to really accelerate forward what it is that I'm here to do. Like for example, myself, it's been so frustrating not being able to get certain things out this year, but that's all about to happen next month anyway, so it works perfectly, you know, with this North Node in Aries. You know, it's like website will be out, finally I'll be doing the things that I've been wanting to do consistently, God willing. You never know what might happen, but you know, that's what I'm seeing and praying for right now. And that is why you have to protect yourself and put that flag in the ground, you know, not metaphorically, I'm saying that, to say, right, this is my place. I'm going to move forward now and do the best that I can for myself, for my integrity, for my tribe, for the people that I love, for my own sense of self. Because my God, it's been stressful, right? These last 3 years, you know, it's just been so difficult to keep it together. You know, it's been so hard to maintain that level of, again, sovereignty, humility, grace, self-respect, love. And I think everyone will be grateful to be moving out of this South Node in Scorpio. Even though, to be fair, you know, with hindsight, you know, I'm looking back on it now, even though it's been horribly difficult for me, I'm still value, you know, what it's given me. You know, it's really gone deep into this sort of like the darkest part of me to get rid of, you know, what is no longer required. So discipline is required, you know, with Capricorn full moon. It's about stating what you can and cannot do. And if you're not happy, you know, in your environment, then you need to change it, you know, and that will become more obvious, I think, as the month progresses, as this Venus retrograde really kicks in. So there's a couple of scenarios. You know, one scenario is thank God, I finally found my place. I'm happy with what I can do now. I know my limits. Now it's time to be consistent and commit and move forward and go for it. That's one scenario. Another scenario is things need to change. I need to have conversations. I need to adhere to certain disciplines. I need to make certain agreements. I need to really prioritize, my sense of self, my sanity. There's only so much I can do, and then it's almost like, I wouldn't say giving up, but surrendering to the reality of your fate, a little bit, and accepting certain things and compromising. That's a good Venus thing to do. But then there's another side of it where I can't do this anymore. It's no good. Things need to change. I'm not happy. And again, this is a lot to do with this bifurcation. Then you've really got to just accept that things need to change, and that could be as extreme as as breaking up, moving location. It doesn't mean you have to do it straight away, but it might mean that you need to consider all of that, because it's going to get more extreme probably when we get to the 17th at the end of the month. Certainly by the eclipses in October, if you're feeling this way now and you haven't made the adjustments, could be very, very explosive and difficult then. So that's where we're at. And that's what's good about post-solstice. That's what's good about the full moon in Capricorn. We can really, really get structured, really accept these things. Saturn is considered the Grim Reaper, in astrology. It's like looking at all your choices in life and then the marker of those things, before you go wherever, purgatory, heaven or hell. It's that kind of idea. There's nothing wrong with assessing things and then being honest about it. Like I say, Saturn will do that. The Capricorn full moon is a great opportunity just to really solidify oneself, look at the reality of their life. If you're on the up, get planning, get ready for these exponential shifts that are going to occur. Pluto going back into Aquarius next year, Jupiter conjunct Uranus next year, the eclipses, get ready, really get that flag in there. Who you are now, what you stand for. Start planning accordingly, thrive, use this last bit of the South Node in Scorpio, North Node in Taurus to really get ready, because obviously the social aspect of the South Node in Libra will create more people potentially as well, so more alliances, more community, more opportunity. So be excited about that. If the full moon, like I said, the scenario 2 is asking you to really have those conversations. Nothing is over until it's over, So there's always a chance to reprieve, to apologise, to accept, to surrender, to be vulnerable. Beautiful qualities. My wife, as you all probably know, Eugenia, is very good at this sort of relationship stuff. We've just been looking at this thing called Beyond Mars and Venus, the guy who wrote Men Are From Mars, Women Are From Venus. So, we can't help, I can't help, get caught in these things. And to be honest, it's actually really useful, when you look at the gender stuff that's going on in the world right now, how, women are more like men and men are more like women, and how do you co-create, how do you become sovereign with that, there's so much danger here, of men becoming disempowered, feeling angry, resentful because they're not being, they're being emasculated or not feeling masculine. Likewise with women, who are doing too much work, too career orientated maybe, and that might be affecting their female side. So this is just the stuff that can help, if relationships are going through difficulty. There's so many good resources out there that over the last year, Eugenia and I have been looking at, and I think it's really, really helpful for all couples. It's more empowered, more forewarned, forearmed, and all that kind of stuff. So being vulnerable is a very powerful thing. Like I say, from a masculine perspective, it doesn't mean that you're being weak. It doesn't mean that you're being soft or whatever. It means that you're being in some ways more authentic. But yes, it can become problematic if you start to become too needy and too female, because that's not going to be attractive to a woman. And again, there's so much confusion with gender differences now that it's very complicated. But, I'm going to just talk about it anyway. I don't really care. I do honour all people and everyone's different. But there are biological stuff, which again is very contentious things to say these days. It's really sad that, but I'm not going to go down that path actually. I'm just going to just move on from that. So anyway, it's all about know thyself, and we've been through the mill. We've been through a lot of difficulty. It's been very unstable for a very long time, and there still is instability that exists there. There's still weird stuff going on in the financial world. It's not over yet. There still is strange occurrences going on in the world geopolitically. It's not over yet. So, what can we do? You've got to know yourself. You've got to be honest about who you are. You've got to communicate that to your tribe, your people, your loved ones. You've got to take advantage of while people are still here on this planet, and at the same time, you've got to just relax. I always seem to say that, don't I, these days? And showing up like this, is also important too. Consistency. So I've pretty much said what I needed to say. Just be aware that on the 2nd, Venus does square Uranus. So again, just highlights what I'm talking about, really. It highlights this move into this new world, no escaping it. How do we fit into it? How are we participating with it? How are we making it better? How are we feeling better? For example, just as an example with that Beyond Mars and Venus thing. Can't believe I'm talking about it. There you go. It's like, I need to listen more as a man, for example, to my partner. And likewise, she needs to feel heard. And at the same time, she could be supportive to me as well. It's just working out who you are and communicating. That's just really the key. Because if it gets too extreme over this summer, you won't be able to have those conversations. You won't be prepared for the great abundance that is coming potentially next year and the year after. You won't be making good decisions because you'll be arguing. You won't be on the same team, basically. So it's just very, very important right now to really, really trust yourself, forgive yourself, have conversations if need be. If things are going well, go for it. Put the pedal to the metal, get the plan together, succeed, thrive. The more money you make, the more opportunity you're going to bring to the planet. It's so worth it. It's so worth it going for it and being your authentic self. Not only will you be happy, not only will you succeed, you'll inspire others, and then suddenly you'll have a community of like-minded people. That's exactly what is needed right now. So if you're on that scenario 1, go for it. Reach out. I want to be part of it. If it's scenario 2, just have those conversations. Just do what is required. To ensure that you are got agreements. So you're not going to go into resentment or anything like that, or you're not going to disassociate as well. One of our friends was telling us about this idea of hyper-arousal when people go through trauma. I thought it was really interesting. People can get so hyped, so in a state of like fight or flight, that the best thing to do is have time out. It doesn't mean you have to break up, doesn't mean you have to take it to that extreme, but you might need a bit of space. And if you have a bit of space, that's all you might need. Just, again, it depends on who you are. This is why human design is so important. You learn about this side of yourself, especially if you're in a relationship. For example, if you're both emotional people, then if you don't have space, you won't be able to let that wave come down before you again go back into the conversation. You've really got to manage that. You've got to have time out as well. Like, it's just fascinating to think what COVID did, why COVID created so many breakups and so much abuse as well, and sadly, the worst case, checking out, suicide, because people just couldn't either have the space or they couldn't go out and socialise, and we've got to get through this post-pandemic trauma. We've got to move into the new phase of all of this, which, obviously financial is going to be a big one. We still haven't quite seen the ramifications of it completely yet, but it's there. It's happening in real time. And then scenario 3, you know, if it's done, and it's over, then you've really got to start thinking of your escape plan, you know, your exit strategy, unfortunately, because otherwise it's just going to get worse. So I hope it isn't like that for you. If it is, then sometimes taking one step back is better to take 3 steps forward, and that's just the sad reality. You know, you don't want to be living a false life. You don't want to be in denial of the truth of who you are. The worst case scenario is that someone dies, you know, and then it really forces that reality to be focused on, you know, where you've got to face it then. All right, so that's enough for me to say for this week. We'll talk next week, but you know, July is another pretty full-on month in a way. It's more to do with the fact that there's a lot of oppositions and change. This Venus retrograde really kicks in next month, you know. But that's really what the majority of the conversation is going to be about this summer. It's really going to be about Venus. So I really need to probably do a presentation on it pretty soon. Stay tuned. There's going to be so much coming with both me and Eugenia. So it's really, really fortunate. It's annoying how long things take, but it's also fortunate to think that we're almost there. So, you know, just stay tuned, hang in there. There's lots of things coming your way that are going to be really helpful for this period of time. Help you get into your heart. Help you, empower you. That's what we want to do. Right, I can't see any questions here, so I'm going to move on and say, take care of yourselves. Thanks for tuning in. Best thing that could happen for us is for you to become your authentic self. Don't have fear of your reality. Don't have fear if things need to change. There's always a way. There's always a solution. You know, for example, love will always save the day. You know, and really take advantage of those conversations with your parents right now. You know, if you can, because you know, once they're gone, they're gone. So you know, if you can have those conversations and those reality checks right now, you know, whoever it may be, you know, for siblings too, it's really, really fortunate. Don't ever underestimate it. Personally, I'm very happy to be out of this South Node in Scorpio. And we won't really have much Scorpio at all now. But what's good about it, it really gets us to the dark, deep, you know, secrets and hidden stuff. It rules psychology to Scorpio. So, you know, if there's hidden stuff there, the stuff that needs to be cleansed, needs to be removed, now is the time to do it. Because there is self-sabotage that exists, you know, in the psyche. There is negativity, you know, which is natural. But a lot of these traumas can come from places we don't know where they're coming from. And then they create a self-fulfilling prophecy of, you know, of morose sadness, guilt, shame. We want to get rid of that. And then at least then, you know, we can be honest in our relationships, in our environment, in our community. All right. So use that Capricorn full moon to get structure now for the rest of the year. Get prepared. There is so much abundance ahead of us over these next couple of years. If you're on the right side of the wave, that is. Got to be on the right side, you know. The old world, the bifurcation, going down and down and down and down. Like, you know, it's like World War III on that parallel reality, you know, in a way. But this reality, you know, that's going up, magical, exponential growth, profound experiences, synchronicity, magic, you know, community, thrive, tribe, all of that. And if the more people of us are going up like that, the more we're going to help this bifurcation and potentially prevent catastrophe. And I don't want to sound conceited and arrogant to say that, but I genuinely believe, you know, the world of form can be made manifest through, you know, our actions. So the more positivity we have, the more light that we give, the more service we can offer, the more creativity we can offer the world, the greater hope, the greater chance we have of conclusions, like say, divine intervention. Wouldn't it be amazing that in this summer we really start to see the exponential growth of the potential, of the light, of happiness, of joy, of things that can really propel us with confidence to know that where we're moving to next is far better and greater than where we are now. And we're coming through it, coming to the other side of this dark matter, into the light, into excitement. That would be fantastic. So if you're feeling good, you're feeling excited, you're feeling ready, you're feeling the calling, and now is the time. Get the structure, get ready, start doing it, and then it'll be exponential. It'll be fascinating, and it'll be so cool as well. Such fun. Okay, with that in mind, take care. All the best.